Hello, everybody. This is Zach back here with another episode of Clutch Crew Sports. And today we are debuting our NBA mock draft special episode where I have a mock draft, Connor has a mock draft, Eric's made a mock draft. We put them all together, and we're going to show you guys who we have being picked in our mock draft for the draft upcoming on Thursday, June 20th. And
not long from now.
yeah, when you guys hear this, it's gonna be, you're gonna be probably listening to it the day of the draft, and we'll probably do a little bit of a after the draft, post draft sort of discussion on it too, because there's obviously going to be trades that happen that we don't know about right now. There was a trade actually even today that happened not too long ago, so definitely things are going to be happening. But today I am joined by Connor. Eric wasn't able to make the show, but Connor's here, and he's going to give a pretty good take on a lot of ACC players because obviously he's a fan of North Carolina.
I don't think we mentioned that before, but I am a Tar Heels fan, being from North Carolina. So
that's true. I mean, they know you're a Hornets fan. They know you're from North Carolina, but they could have thought you as a Duke fan or NC State.
We do have three teams, so
yeah.
But I am a Carolina fan, so
yeah.
I bleed Carolina blue.
Yeah, there's a couple Carolina players in this projected to be in this first round here, so it's going to be a busy night for a lot of those players and those schools. But and then me personally, I'm a Tennessee fan, so I've been watching a lot of SEC basketball. And even some out-of-conference games that Tennessee played, like they played a game against Gonzaga. So even though I only watched one true Gonzaga game from like start to finish, other than maybe one of their tournament games, I feel like I know a little bit about two of the Gonzaga prospects in this draft and a couple others, but we'll get into that later. We do want to mention a couple trades that happened in between the last recording and this recording. So the first trade was obviously probably going to end up being the biggest trade of this NBA season, with the Pelicans trading Anthony Davis to the Lakers for Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, and 3 first-round picks, including the number 4 overall pick for this year's draft. So that's, quite a big haul to get for one player, but Anthony Davis is a proven all-star player. Some people have him top 5 current player. So, look, the Lakers are building a super team, and I think this is a win-win trade. But Connor, what do you think about this trade?
Yeah, well, depends on. I think it is a win-win, just in different lengths of time, per se. I mean, because obviously the Lakers with LeBron James, they want to win now, and right now, they've missed the playoffs for, I don't know how many seasons. Is it 4 years in a row now they've missed the playoffs?
4 or 5. It seems like it's been a long time.
Yeah. Since Kobe was, still playing at a high level, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And so they really want to win now, and this is their way of doing it. They wanted to try and bring Kawhi Leonard in last offseason, and we saw that didn't work. So their next plan was to bring Anthony Davis to the Lakers to try and boost their team and get some all-stars around LeBron James to try and build another super team. And so it's working out good for them, and obviously we're probably going to talk about this sometime later too, but the Lakers are also on the market to try and bring in a free agent to add to the Anthony Davis LeBron James combo. We don't know if it'll be I've heard Kawhi Leonard maybe, or Klay Thompson, or somebody like that.
Let me check our Twitter handle, Clutch Crew Sports, and see because I know Eric posted a poll on this actually. He actually put up a thing here. So these are the final results from our poll. We got 13 votes. Not if this poll is true, not good news for Connor as a Hornets
really
fan.
Bad news for me.
Yeah. But I picked Jimmy Butler, but honestly, I think I should have picked other and should have picked other none because I don't think they're going to get another big free agent. I feel like with their cap situation, if they got another big star free agent, they'd have those three guys and Kuzma, so that those four, and then they would have no other players on their team because they, that's a lot of salaries within those three players. So I feel like financially they're gonna try and get shooters, get role players sort of situation, someone like a Brick Lopez maybe. But let me see if anybody put a 31% of people said other leaving comments, and nobody wrote in a comment. So I guess that means none. I don't know. I would have wrote none if I was doing that, but
Yeah.
um,
Well, the other thing that I know my dad and I have talked about this before. You mentioned that if they bring in another free agent, they're not another big free agent. They're not going to have the money left to put anybody else on the team. But basketball is a bit unique to other sports in the sense that you really can, if you have two or three, even just one good player, it can take you really far. I mean, we saw that with LeBron James in Cleveland. I mean, he took them to four straight NBA finals. I mean, in the first couple of years, he had Kyrie and Kevin Love around him,
mhm.
but if you want any example of how much he was carrying the team, you just have to look at this season. I mean, they were in the NBA finals last season, and now they were second to last in the East this year,
Yeah,
only ahead of the
they
Knicks.
were bad. Yeah, and it was
Yeah.
funny because okay, I'm trying to think of the guy's name, the center for Cleveland. I'm brain farting right now on what his name is. But
Oh,
Tristan Thompson. Okay, Tristan Thompson.
yeah.
He said that we're the kings of the East until someone beats us or so. Like he thought he came into the season like still saying like, oh, we should be predicted to win the East. But like obviously when you have LeBron James on your team, he's the only reason why they've made the playoffs that last year. I don't think they would, they
Yeah.
would have been just like they were this year, but so
I
that's
mean,
gonna yeah.
yeah, it reminds me of. I mean, the same thing happened in 2011 when he left for Miami.
Hmm.
They didn't make the finals the previous year, but they were coming off a playoff year, and he left for Miami, and that was when they went on to set the record for the longest losing streak in NBA history, which was like 27 straight games or something, and they were last place in the East.
Yeah.
So it really shows the difference that LeBron has made for the Cavaliers. But back to this. So I mean, I do think they are going to try and go after another big free agent because I think they can roll with those three,
Hmm.
depending on whoever the third guy is, if it at all,
Yeah.
and they can still have a lot of success.
Yeah.
And so, while this is obviously a short-term move for the Lakers, they want to win now. They're going to be in a really bad way, probably 4 or 5 seasons from now,
Oh yeah.
because they gave up all these first-round picks and they gave away a lot of young players. So they've essentially screwed themselves about
Yeah,
4 years from now.
and they're only gonna, as far as we know right now, their only potential notable players in the future would be Anthony Davis and Kuzma, but LeBron retiring in 4 years or so, but
Right.
his production will probably drop off. I mean, I think his production might drop off this year, but it'll
Well, especially
slowly.
coming back from injury.
Yeah, I mean, he's got more. He had he's got a full off season. After playing in 8 straight finals, that's crazy to go through. You're playing like an extra month and a half, 2 months every year, so that's a wear and tear in your body. But I think that in a few years the Pelicans could have a really good team if all these guys live up to the potential that they're supposed to be. Zion's supposed to be generational. Lonzo, if you listen to LeVar Ball, Lonzo is going to be better than Steph Curry and all
Do you
those
really
guys.
want to listen to him though? I saw that he
um,
recently got banned from ESPN. Actually,
yeah, Molly Karam was talking. She was saying something like, okay, we'll switch gears onto this, and then he said, I'll switch gears with you anytime. And like people are like, whoa, like and then they and then but I don't think he's apologized or anything. But he's a character. He's funny though. I like some people they don't like him and stuff. I just like him for the entertainment. I like the funny stuff he says. I don't take him as seriously at all.
Like when he said he could win a one-on-one against Michael Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah, if you listen to him, you're not you shouldn't believe everything he says. I'll put it that way. But and then there was another trade actually that happened, and I posted about this on the Clutch Crew Sports Facebook page here.
Like
And
it.
yeah, make sure you like it. That's where you get a lot of updates. Every episode we post links on there, alerts, news stories. Connor's been posting a couple things. He posted the AD trade and something else. I want to say I also posted the Rockets thing, but I've been posting a little bit. Connor's posting earlier, so stay tuned. Oh, he posted the episode link. But for this trade, the Utah Jazz get Mike Conley, and they're a team who is really in need of a point guard. They've got Donovan Mitchell, but so that backcourt now is going to be pretty strong. And, and or Memphis, I should say, they get Grayson Allen, Kyle Korver, Jay Crowder, pick 23 in this year, and a future first round pick. And that future first round pick, I put future first round pick not to complicate you guys because it's like it's so weird with its protections and stuff. Like if it's not a late first round pick next year, then it goes to a 2022 to 2024 pick. So it's I don't want to go into the details of it, but just future first round pick is an easy way to say what it is. And to me, I was kind of surprised by this because I think Mike Conley's a really underrated player, and I don't know if any of the players that they get in return for this are going to be comparable to his quality at all. Because Grayson Allen, I don't know how well he did his rookie year, but I didn't hear anything out of him, so I assume he didn't do that great. Kyle Korver is probably going to
Playing in
retire.
the G League somewhere.
Maybe. Kyle Korver, this is probably going to be his last year. He's talked about retirement, so that's not he's very well.
I mean, he's been around forever.
Yeah. And then Jay Crowder, who he's a decent player off the bench, but all that, and then pick 23. That's a late first round pick to be getting. That's not like a lottery pick or anything. And then a future first round pick. I feel like they could have gotten something better out of it. I mean, maybe not with the Jazz, but maybe with another team. Something. I mean, they got a lot of stuff, but it's a lot of
quality over quantity is what you're looking for here.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get, obviously the Pelicans got a lot of stuff in their deal too, but they got a lot of quality stuff. Stuff that they can use to build a future. Obviously, they're not going to win next year, or maybe even a couple of years after that. But it's a way that they can build a future to where 3 or 4 years from now they have a competitive team. Whereas you're right about the Grizzlies here. I mean, they don't really gain anything from this. Obviously, they're going to be looking to go after John Morant in the draft with the second pick. But yeah, what are you really going to turn that 23rd pick into? Who knows if even the guy that you want to get at that pick is even going to still be around by the time it gets to you, because you don't know what's going to happen. Because it's going to be certain. They're certain to get John Morant, because unless the Pelicans throw the biggest curveball of all time, they're going to take Zion Williamson. So, that's the John Morant is set in stone, but it's just a bit odd, like you said in the post, as to why they would want to go through that. And going back to what Grayson Allen, you were talking about, you don't know if he played at all. He did play in 38 games for the Jazz last year. He only started 2 of them, and he looks like he averaged 5 8.5 points a
Yeah,
game.
so
So and
he's essentially like a rookie. Like we don't know how he's going to be.
right, yeah,
Uh,
and he averaged less than one on all the other stats. Less than
yeah,
one rebound, less than one assist.
there's a reason why I didn't hear anything about it.
I mean, he shot 32% from three and 37% from the field, so that's not terrible.
Yeah,
And a 75% free throw percentage. So, because Lonzo Ball over here with his 42%
you
free
told me
throw
about that.
percentage.
I knew he was a bad free throw shooter, but I didn't know he was that bad.
I mean, that's worse
That's
than
awful.
Shaq.
Yeah, that's awful. And I think his dad Levar said, "Oh, I could teach him to be an 85% free throw shooter." Well, then why don't you teach him?
Yeah, right. I mean, when you're out here shooting a worse free throw percentage than Shaq, don't you think you might want to, step in there and work
Yeah.
on this?
All right. So I'm gonna try my best impression here of the little draft jingle that they do. So, do 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 do. Welcome to the NBA 2019 draft presented by State Farm.
Gonna
I
be the
didn't know
first
what.
one I've ever watched.
Yeah. So this is going to be our mock draft here, guys. Um,
We're hoping to have some success.
yeah.
Zach and I were talking about this earlier. I'm hoping it goes the same for me as it went with the NFL draft. We weren't doing this podcast back then, but I actually managed to get 8 of the 32 picks correct in the first round. So
Yeah, that's hard to do because you might be thinking, "Oh, he only got 8," but like to get it dead on the exact pick, not like a pick before or a pick after, but the exact pick. That's
well,
pretty crazy.
and especially with the fact that obviously the first 3 or 4 or 5, if you get all of those right, it's not too big of a deal because most people know about that. But I also got the 1 through 3 correct. Then the Raiders just threw that big curveball and whatever. I got the 5th pick right. I got the 13th, the 18th, the 19th, and the 24th pick correct.
Yeah, and those are hard to predict because that's so far later down in the draft that trades and stuff can all happen. But for this NBA one, we've all got Zion here pretty,
Pretty
you know,
standard.
yeah, this
I mean,
some years there might be like, oh, it's a debate between one guy or another guy. This year it's 100% conclusion it's Zion.
yeah,
So,
especially with how disappointed he looked when the Pelicans got the first pick.
yeah.
I mean, and I'm really interested to see how he does because obviously being a Tar Heels fan, I got to watch him 3 times last year when they played against the Tar Heels. Well, actually, I only got to watch him twice because, well, no, he didn't play in the first game either, I don't think.
No, he
So
got injured in the first game.
that's right. I only got to watch him once. I watched him a couple other times when they
Yeah.
like their games against Virginia and Syracuse.
Dude,
I watched those.
we both watched the Louisville game that they had.
Yeah.
And
Oh my
that
goodness.
was Louisville choked that one. I've never seen a
was
choke as big as that.
Yeah, I was watching that game and I was like, oh my goodness, Louisville is actually going to do this, especially how bad Louisville had been playing up to that point.
Yeah.
They had that big upset over Carolina early in the season, but then they started to fall off and,
Mhm.
they were up by 23. I'm like, man, it's going to happen, and I was
home,
happy
they
because the Tar Heels were going to move back into first in the ACC, like tied with Virginia. And yeah, Zion, I mean, really, Zion was a big part of that. He really led them to that comeback. So,
So
interested to see how he does.
We've all got him at pick 1. Pick 2, we've all got John Morant, point guard out of Murray State. He's in obviously Murray State. You don't really watch a whole lot of their games except for maybe the tournament ones, but
yeah, that's all I saw of him.
From the videos I've seen, he's an incredible passer. I mean, the no look passes that he delivers in like his highlight videos that I've seen are just sensational, and I believe the Grizzlies, like they traded Mike Conley. Obviously, the whole time they were wanting this guy because they only he was like their only invite to their pre-draft workouts. Like they didn't look at anybody else. They basically said that we're picking John Morant. Like if you're picked behind us, don't worry about picking him. We're gonna pick him. So that's like a no-brainer pick.
Yeah, they didn't even consider maybe taking R.J. Barrett, and it was just confirmed when they traded away Mike Conley. Yeah. Like, okay, they traded away their point guard. Obviously, they're going to draft a point guard.
Yep, and then pick 3. Connor just mentioned R.J. Barrett. We've all got him here. I believe the Knicks even like this seems like a foregone conclusion too. There was some speculation maybe the Knicks were going to trade back, or the Knicks were going to try and maybe trade this for AD and some other stuff, but the Lakers already have AD now, so the Knicks are kind of locked into this year, and this is going to be a no-brainer, guys. Like if you look up any mock draft, it's going to have this first three. It's after this first three where it gets different. So with that being said, pick 4. We've all got different players here. I've got Darius Garland, Connor's got DeAndre Hunter, and Eric's got Jarrett Culver. And for the YouTube listeners and viewers, the little asterisks next to their names mean Eric and I think that there's a high chance that this pick is going to be traded draft night. So we would not be surprised at all. I don't think Connor would be surprised, but I don't think he's got the confidence that this pick's going to be traded as much as Eric. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't shock me if the pick would be traded. I've heard a lot of rumors about it, but for right now, I've got the Pelicans taking Hunter just because. I mean, these picks 4 through 7 on this draft mention this is that it's pretty consensus on who the 4 guys are going to be between 4 and 7. It's just all figuring out what order they're going to go in. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows who's going to go where. Whether some mock drafts have one guy at 7, and another mock draft will have him at 4. So we don't know.
Garland's an interesting one because he played for Vanderbilt, and so you're immediately thinking, oh man, he must suck because Vanderbilt didn't win any games in the SEC last year, but he was actually injured most all of last season, so he didn't play at all. So it's hard to put him at 4. I put him at 4 just because I feel like the Pelicans, after taking Zion, are going to be needing like a point guard, to match up with Drew Holiday. Well, I guess now they have Lonzo, but they've got, Lonzo can start. This guy can come off the bench. And then you've got Holiday, Hart, Ingram. I mean, you've got a nice young team here. The Pelicans are going to definitely have, like, the youngest team in the league. But,
yeah. Well, I know interesting... Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I was just saying Jarrett Culver here. He's another guy that people have a lot in this 4 through 7 range, too, so...
Yeah, I think I'd probably honestly, even though it's not on here, I'd probably pick DeAndre Hunter in the sense that I might think this pick would get traded because you'd be thinking to yourself, why would the Pelicans take another small forward after taking Zion? And I mean, DeAndre Hunter, it's not like he's one of those small forwards like Cam Johnson where he's 6'9", and so where he could possibly play power forward or even just a little bit shorter where he could play shooting guard. I think he's pretty locked as a small forward.
Okay, yeah.
So I think, because he's only 6'7", so I think, because again, the Pelicans probably wouldn't need him, but if the pick gets traded to, say, like the Hawks, I'm sure they could definitely use him. And, playing Virginia, I saw him play twice. I saw him play once against Carolina, and then I got to see him since Virginia won the title. I saw him quite a bit in the tournament. And he was really... People like to talk about Kyle Guy and Ty Jerome a lot with Virginia, but DeAndre Hunter was kind of like the heart and soul of the Virginia team. Whenever they needed someone to step up and take the reins, Hunter was the guy that was there to do that.
Yeah. So for pick 5 here, I've got DeAndre Hunter, Eric's got DeAndre Hunter, and Connor's got Darius Garland. So the same people that we just mentioned here, we have here. The only reason I've got Hunter here is I have him as a better fit on the Cavs. Like, I can't say that, that pick's going to be traded, but if I think Hunter works better on the Cavs than he would with the Pelicans, but I don't know. They could use anybody, really. They're the Cavaliers right now. They've got Colin Sexton, the point guard they drafted last year. So I'd be a little bit more surprised if they took Garland, like you say that they're going to pick, but definitely possible.
Yeah.
So, and then pick number 6 here, the Phoenix Suns. Connor will definitely want to talk about this since it's his North Carolina guy. So Connor and I both have Kobe White, the point guard from North Carolina here, and Eric's got Darius Garland, the guy that each of us had in the other two picks. So I'll let Connor talk about Kobe White here.
He was my guy last year, man. He had great hair. First of all, I mean, I thought that Joel Berry had some nice hair, but Kobe White blew him out of the water with his hair. But he's an interesting point guard to start with. Given the fact that he's 6'5", he's really tall for a standard point guard. So he could easily play shooting guard. And I was talking to Zach about this before the podcast, that I feel like he could kind of be in a role similar to what Dwayne Wade had with the Heat, where he's playing shooting guard, but he can easily be the playmaker and the guy who takes it up the court, and runs the offense from a point guard status, given the fact that he can play in that higher position or the shooting guard position because of him being taller. And one thing that I think is a bit underrated about him too is everybody was talking about his. See, all the people on YouTube see his wonderful hair there. But one thing that's underrated about him is actually his defense of skills, because funny enough, going into the season, the Tar Heels actually had him listed at 6'4", and he wanted to be listed at 6'5". Well, Roy Williams' caveat for him being 6'5", he said, "I'm not going to list you at 6'5" until you win Defensive Player of the Game 3 times. Come to find out, he won Defensive Player of the Game at least 5 or 6 times throughout the season. I can't remember how many times it was, but it's something that I think isn't talked about him enough, is his defensive skills, because he's a great passer, great scorer, but I think his defensive skills are what sets him apart from maybe Jarrett Culver, who we'll get to in a second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Connor and I both have Jarrett Culver here. And Eric's got Kobe White, the guy who both of us had going in the Suns. And I know that the Bulls have a good shooting guard right now in Zach LaVine, but I feel like at this point in the draft, Culver's the best available prospect, because offensively he's pretty unstoppable. And I shouldn't say unstoppable, but he's definitely, that's where most of his skills are, is offensively. I know in the championship game, he didn't have a great game. I think playing Virginia, they had the toughest defense in all of college basketball.
Defense versus defense.
Yeah, and the Texas Tech was defensively oriented too, but it just didn't seem like Culver was a defense. He was like a scorer for them, but he didn't really show up very. Yeah, I mean, he made a couple shots late, I want to say, but. Mm-hmm. And I know I'll say this about Culver, and Eric will like this too. He's very good in NBA 2K19 when you do like the download draft class and stuff. I recommend picking Culver because his 3-point shooting skills in 2K it seems like he's 50% from 3-point shots, and I've got him on my team, and I like it. He's not the highest overall guy, but I play really well with him. So,
well, it's funny to see how 2K kind of does that sometimes with players, even though their overall might be kind of low compared to what you would think as a really good player. They still have to turn to be really good. I mean, you and I have some experience with this back in NBA 2K11 with John Wall, and how he was only about an 81 overall, but he was actually a really good player, and he was so fast, and
his speed.
It was like he could carry a team. He could carry the Wizards in that game, and he just seemed like his overall was too low for how good he was in the game.
Yeah. That Wizards association, that's a story for another day, man.
the failed Wizards or semi-failed Wizards association, despite how good the team was supposed to be.
Yeah. So moving on here to pick 8. This is the only other pick in the draft where all three of us consensusly have picked Cam Reddish, shooting guard from Duke, and I'll let Connor talk more about him, but I'll say one thing real quick is he was one of those guys that I read about that would have been that they say should have stayed with Duke to really improve his game, because he's kind of like a raw talent, but I'll let Connor elaborate more on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of agree with that a little bit, because Barrett and Williamson were obviously, they were set to go into the draft for sure after the season. But I think you're right about Cam Reddish that he maybe should have stayed with Duke because I don't think he was good enough to be. I mean, if you look at the average points per game between the three, Williamson and Barrett and Reddish, Williamson and Barrett were both averaging 22.6 points a game, whereas Reddish was only averaging 13.5. And so, and, he had less rebounds, he had less assists. He was kind of like a third wheel almost.
Yeah.
And he only shot, I'm looking at his stats right now, Reddish was only 35% from the field, which is pretty bad for a shooting guard.
Especially when teams are so worried about Zion and RJ, you would think that he'd be open a lot too,
Right. Yeah, and so which he did, Duke last year overall was a really terrible three-point shooting team, but he was still the second best three-point shooter. Well, actually, he was the third best. Alex O'Connell was officially the best at 37.5, but Cam Reddish was the third best behind Zion, who was only slightly higher than him. But I think it could have done him some good. I don't know how NBA ready he is. It seemed like he would have moments where he would try and take over a game, and he tried to do his best when Zion was gone. But I honestly don't think they would have missed Reddish had he gone down with an injury. They missed Zion big time when he went down with an injury, and they missed Barrett in the Syracuse game when he went down with an injury. So I don't know if I don't know if they would have missed him as much, and I don't know if he was as NBA ready as the other two were.
Definitely.
But, I mean, he's going into the draft, so even though he's from Duke, I wish him all the best. I just don't know how much success he's going to have compared to the other two.
Yeah. And pick number 9 here, I've got Brandon Clark, power forward from Gonzaga. Connor's got Saku. I'll let you say it.
I mean, I don't know if that's the way you pronounce it. I'm just going to say Sekou Doumbouya.
Doumbouya.
I mean, it's French, so
he's
probably
from
not
France.
how you pronounce it.
Power forward from France. And then Eric's got Jackson Hayes, a center from Texas. And my reasoning with this pick, you'll see Brandon Clark for both Connor and Eric a lot later in this draft, but to me, he seems to be one of those riser type guys where early on in the draft process, he would be mocked later in these mock drafts in the 20s and 30s. But I guess he had a good combine or something, and now a lot of mocks have him up here in this range. 9 might be a little bit too high for him, but when I was looking at the Wizards team, I thought this would be a good match for them. And obviously between all three of us, it's power forwards and centers, so they've got Beal and Wall for now anyways. So they definitely need some help with the forward spots.
Yeah, the consensus big man is what they need.
Yeah, so you can debate him versus Sequoia, but
Sequoia.
I don't know. Sequoia.
Saku.
Saku. Okay.
There's not enough letters there for it to be Sequoia.
No. So moving on now from that. And then, so now this is pick 10 here. The same players from the last one, Jackson Hayes for both Connor and I. And then Eric's got the guy from France. His name starts with an S. I don't know why. Saku? Okay.
I think you should just go by his last name, Doumbouya. Yeah. That's a bit easier.
Yeah. So, to me, I picked Jackson Hayes here because he seemed to be I looked at 4 mocks and he was picked at this spot in all of them, it seemed like. So I was like, okay, if every mock draft I see is picking here, I guess I'll pick him here. So that's my reasoning behind it. But I didn't watch much Texas basketball. But
no, I mean we're not too versed in the Big 12 here. I mean, I'm kind of the same as Zach with picking him at number 10 here. That it was the reason why I picked Doumbouya at 9th was because I saw him in 2 mock drafts, both of him going to the Wizards, and the same with Hayes. A lot of mock drafts I saw had him going to the Hawks, and the Hawks need big men. So. Yep.
Yeah, so pick 11 here. This is the last Doumbouya pick. I've got him here at
Thank
11.
God we don't have to mention his name after
Oh, I
this.
know, but there's more international guys coming up. Connor's got his guy Nasir Little, so he'll talk about him here. And then Eric's got PJ Washington, a guy who I saw a lot play for Kentucky. So this will be one where we talk a little bit about, but the Timberwolves, their star is Karl Anthony Towns, so they're good at the center spot. So, but they really could get help in a lot of other spots. They've got Andrew Wiggins, but he's not a great player. He's like an okay player. So
Yeah, and I think the reason why I had Nasir Little going here, just to start off at the beginning of the season, I know Nasir Little was a 5-star recruit coming into Carolina, and he was supposed to be one of the big game changers. But he actually, I don't know if he started, barring injury, Little was not a starter on the team because they had the starting lineup locked with Kobe White, Kenny Williams, Luke May, Cam Johnson, and Garrison Brooks. So Nasir Little didn't actually start any games barring injury. He was just kind of the sixth man on the team. But and I wasn't expecting him to be a one and done after this year. I was expecting Kobe White to be a one and done, especially after the way he started playing. Yeah. I was like, oh yeah, I hate that he's going to leave, but I mean, I know that a lot of people are saying he's going to be one and done, and it's likely that he will be. So that was unfortunate. But Nasir Little, I think it was really towards the end of the season that he really started to cement his status as a possible draft pick. So I think a lot of mocks early on kind of just had him as late second round, if at all. But towards the end of the season, whenever the Tar Heels would start to get into struggling with scoring points, especially when Garrison Brooks would start getting in foul trouble like he was a lot last year, and Nasir Little would come into the game, he picked up the team. He did a lot of the work for, the night whenever Cam Johnson or Kobe White was off, or even when Luke May was off for a lot of the part. Nasir Little would come in and score points. He'd grab rebounds. Not much of a passer, but he would do all the stuff that needed to be done at the forward position. And I think the reason why, as much as I would like for Nasir Little to get drafted by the Hornets at the next pick, which we'll talk about in a second, I think with the fact that the Timberwolves have Karl Anthony Towns already as a big man, I think they wanted to go. I think it'd be beneficial for them to have a forward, obviously, but I think just a small forward, someone who a little bit faster and someone who can score like the way Nasir Little can. So, and like I said, going into the season this year, I would have been shocked if you would have told me that Nasir Little was going to be a consensus lottery pick by the time the season was over. And like I said, I think it was his late season play that really elevated him to that.
Fun little fact here for the viewers is when these guys were sending me their mock drafts for this episode here, Eric he sent a mock draft that didn't have Nasir Little at all, and I was looking back comparing my draft with Eric's, and I was looking at who were some people that I had that he didn't, and vice versa. And he was one of them, and I was like, whoa, I've got him at the next pick at pick 12. And I was like, whoa, man, you don't have this guy? And then he's like, oh, that was a mistake. So he must have forgot. He probably thought he had already picked him and then just assumed that he was already gone off his board. So just a mistake there. But so Eric's got PJ Washington here all the way up at 11. And I know he's a guy that has kind of been climbing the draft boards a little bit. You see he's from Kentucky, but he's a rare Kentucky player in the fact that he's not a freshman. He's a sophomore. So most of the time, the Kentucky players that get drafted, unless you're Coach Cal's son, you stay like 4 years or whatever on the bench, but they're all freshmen.
Kind of like the Duke players too.
Yeah, Duke especially this year, and I guess Duke has had times in the past, but Grayson Allen was a 4-year starter for him. Maybe not starter, but he was there with them for 4 years. But Kentucky is the notorious school for one and dones, and it's like it's Coach Cal's like philosophy. Like Anthony Davis, DeMarcus Cousins. Like, you can go on and
Carl
on.
Anthony
John Wall,
Towns.
Karl Anthony Towns. There's a lot of there's a De'Aaron Fox. There's a lot of Kentucky players that get drafted really high in the league, and a lot of them end up being really good. PJ Washington, personally, I think he's the best Kentucky player, but I still don't think he's gonna be a top, like an all-star Kentucky player sort of deal. So I view him more of like along the lines of somebody like, what's his name? He's like a point guard, Brandon Knight. I want to say he went to Kentucky, someone around like that sort of talent range. So
yeah,
but his stock has been climbing up. And then pick 12 here, I've got Nasir Little. And the reasoning behind this pick here that I picked him with the Hornets is, it seems to me, and there's probably no evidence for this, but it seems like a lot of times a player will get drafted to their, maybe not hometown, but nearest to their college NBA team or NFL team. And whenever it happens, it usually like stands out to you, and it seems like it happens a lot. Like, because I know that the Jaguars pick a lot of Florida players, a lot more than any other team in any other school, and even the years that they didn't, they picked a Central Florida, Blake Bortles in the first round. He's from Central Florida. They picked Jalen Ramsey from Florida.
How that turned out.
Yeah. The Ramsey pick was fine, but it seems to me like, I don't know, because Nasir Little's obviously in this range of being picked. So I was thinking, oh, he's from North Carolina, Charlotte. They probably know a lot about him, so I just thought it was a good match, and I'm sure Connor would be happy with this. So
yeah, I'd be happy with Nasir Little because I already like him for going to Carolina, but I think I went with PJ Washington just because I'm hoping and praying that the Hornets can do all they can to bring Kemba Walker back, because I saw that on the way too early power rankings. Y'all didn't mention this when you talked about him, but the Hornets were all the way down at number 26, which if Kemba Walker were to leave and go somewhere else, then yeah, that's a very real possibility. And the other thing about the Hornets, though, is that they're in a bit of salary cap trouble because they're mainly being hurt by Nicholas Batum. They're locked into this contract with Nicholas Batum.
Oh, that's a bad contract.
Yeah, and it's like a $24 million contract. And
don't they have Bismack Biyombo too? But his might be expiring.
Yeah,
but
his is a $17 million contract. But it's really the Batum thing that's hurting them the most, from what I've read. And because Kemba Walker's only got a $12 million contract right now, but obviously they want to give him the max if they can. And one of his incentives to stay is the fact that he would make, and Eric mentioned this on the last podcast, that he would make more money if he stayed in Charlotte than if he were to go somewhere else. And I know he really likes the team, and he hasn't expressed any desire to leave. So I don't see any reason why he maybe wouldn't. But I went with PJ Washington because I got Nasir Little going to the Timberwolves, and I do think that the Hornets could use more of a big man, because if they're locked into Nicholas Batum, and they've also got Michael Kidd-Gilchrist on the team at small forward, so I think they need more of a bigger forward on the team to help out. Because
he's a true power forward, PJ Washington.
Right. Yeah. And Walker he's got he's a point guard, so he's got the guard. They could use some help at guard too. I can see why Eric would take Tyler Hero. But
Hero.
I think Hero. I think PJ Washington would be a good fit for the team, because they need another big man. Because they got Frank Kaminsky too, but he hasn't really panned out as well as they thought he would. So
the next pick here, Miami Heat. I've got them taking Rui Hachimura, small forward from Gonzaga. Connor's got the same pick, and then
great minds think alike.
Yeah. Great minds think alike. Whoa. That's an inside reference, by the way. Inside joke. I just felt like I had to say that once he said that. And then Eric's got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, a shooting guard from Virginia Tech. And Rui Hachimura, to me, he seems like an underrated player to me because I didn't watch many Gonzaga games except for the one against Tennessee, and in that game he was on fire, man. It was him and Schofield just like matching with threes. Like Schofield would go down, make a three. Hachimura would come down, make a three. They were battling it out. It was like, it was to me, it was like, oh man, this could be like a Final Four matchup or a championship game matchup. That's how good it was. And Hachimura, I don't, just from that one game that I saw him play, I don't know how his season turned out, but he was a really good shooter, and he was like the best Gonzaga player to me in that game. Mm-hmm. And Gonzaga's was a pretty good team last year. Obviously, they were ranked number one for a good stretch of the year, and he's the main reason why they were ranked number one.
So, I always think they're so overrated.
Yeah, they play in a Cake conference, but they had some decent. I do think that they were not deserving of a 1 seed this year.
No, the year they played Carolina in the finals, they were really good that year. But I honestly think that one seed this year should have gone to Michigan State instead of Gonzaga.
Yeah,
because the other three, Virginia, Duke, and Carolina, those were set in stone. But I do think that, especially after that, if they had beaten St. Mary's in the West Coast Conference Final, then I think they should have gotten it. But after that loss, I think Michigan State should have gotten that 1 seed.
Yeah, I agree with you there. But then Eric's got the Heat taking Nickeil Alexander-Walker, a guy that I'll have coming up in a few picks from now, and Connor as well too. But pick number 14 here for the Boston Celtics. They've got 3 picks in this draft, so I think the most out of any teams. And I've got them taking Bol. Yes, I didn't type his first name twice. That's actually his name.
For those of you who don't know who he is.
Yeah. The center from Oregon, real tall guy. He's the son of Manute Ball, the tallest NBA player in history. So obviously he's going to be tall. I don't know his exact height, but I think he's the tallest player in the draft. Maybe Taco Fall's around his height too.
I don't know if Taco Fall's going to get taken though.
Well, I've seen him in late second round. I'm sure someone's going to take him just for his size, but it's going to be like a late second round sort of thing.
Bol is 7'2".
Yeah, 7'2". So the reason I've got him going here to the Celtics because I don't think Al Horford's coming back, so they're going to need a center. And for whatever reason, I've seen him drafted by the Celtics in a lot of draft. And obviously the Celtics have 3 picks, so that makes sense. But it seems like the Celtics are interested in this guy, and he fits a need for them. But in my mind, with no returning Al Horford, so that's my reasoning for this.
Well, and the Celtics need a big man too, and so I mean, I have them taking Tyler Hero here, but I have them taking a big man later on down the line because they definitely need one. And Bol is interesting though because his stock is way up in the air. I mean, I've seen him on mock drafts. I mean, it's pretty consensus that he's going to be first round. It's just he's all over the place in the first round. Some have him up here, like you saw with the Celtics, but others don't even have him until way down the line in the first round. And, there's all that uncertainty around him because he didn't play hardly at all last season. He was injured for most of the year. So, and there's always a question behind that. Can they come back and still be the force that they were before the injury?
And I didn't mention this, but Eric's got an international player, Goga Bitadze. I'm sure I mispronounced that one wrong, but this is a guy I've never really. He's from the Republic of Georgia, by the way, too, not the University of Georgia. And I don't know much about him. He's a center. He's a European center, so he's probably going to be a decent shooter. So,
he's Bataz.
Bataz, yeah,
I think so.
But I mean, I've got him here in this draft. Connor does too. It's just we don't know much about these guys. We see the mock drafts that experts have been making, and we make our judgments off that. And especially with a player like this that we know nothing about, we just kind of have to trust the experts. And then pick 15 here for the Detroit Pistons. I've got them taking Romeo Langford, point guard out of Indiana. Connor's got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Eric's got Nasir Little. So this is the farthest down for Nasir Little. And the reason I've got for Langford, one, the Pistons desperately need guards, and specifically, I think, a point guard. And Langford, he's a kind of around the area guy, so they're probably kind of familiar with him. Indiana and Michigan are close together. I know that's not the reason why teams pick players, but it seems like the correlation. I tell you, man, it seems to me like it's there. And he was like viewed as he was like a for sure one and done type of player, and I think he didn't play as well in college for Indiana. Obviously, Indiana didn't have a great season, and he was kind of a disappointment for him. So if he had a great season at Indiana, I think he would have been a much higher prospect of a pick. But the fact that he was like a 5-star player or whatever coming into Indiana, the the talent is there. It's just he didn't really show it at Indiana. But I still think that's going to warrant a top 15 pick. I know these guys have him later on in the draft, but to me, he's still a top 15 player in this draft. It's just he didn't perform that way at Indiana.
Yeah, I mean with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, same reason as you. The Pistons need a guard. I just think Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a better player. I didn't get to see him much last year because the Tar Heels only had one game against Virginia Tech, and it was a blowout. It was a 103-80-something victory for the Tar Heels, so I didn't really see much of him. But from what I heard in that game, he played a decent game. I mean, probably not as good as he needed to play, obviously, but he played a decent game. So, and yeah, the Pistons need a guard. So,
yep. So now pick 16 here for the Orlando Magic. Connor and my pick, just flip flop him here. He's got Romeo, I've got Nickeil, and then Eric's got another Kentucky guy, Keldon Johnson, who I forgot to mention this with Hero, but him and Hero are also both shockingly freshmen. So, PJ Washington, there's the outlier. But the Magic are a team that they're my favorite team. I'm a Trailblazers fan, but the Magic are my favorite. I would love for the Magic to win a championship.
He's got to root for the Trailblazers just because they're the ones that make the playoffs.
Yeah, they're the ones that make the playoffs. They're out in the West, so they don't have any sort of rivalry or any history with Orlando. So, and I'm a big Dame Lillard fan. That's another reason why I'm a big fan of the Blazers. And for the Magic's sake, though, they've drafted a lot of big men and stretch forwards. Their team is full of big men. They've got, if Vucevic resigns, they've got him, Mo Bamba, their rookie draft pick from Texas, who has the longest wingspan ever out of any NBA player. They've got Aaron Gordon, and they've got Jonathan Isaac. So these are all like really tall forward type players. They just haven't been picking guards. So I feel like they've been picking best available in the recent drafts, whereas their needs are at guard. They haven't really addressed that at all the past couple of years. They've been rolling with Fournier, who's a decent guard, but for point guard, they could definitely use an upgrade. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he's not a point guard, but he's still a shooting guard who's ball dominant. I feel like I like him better than Langford. So this is a little bit of personal bias here, putting him in. I want the Magic to take this guy. From all the mocks I've seen him go to the Magic a lot. I've seen
he doesn't get picked before.
I've seen actually all these guys. I've seen Keldon Johnson go to him. Yeah, so this could be any of these guys, but I'm hoping out of these it's Alexander Walker.
Yeah, I mean, Magic. It's obviously I'm basing this mostly off of the fact that they do re-sign Vucevic. I don't know if I just pronounced that wrong, but
Vucevic.
Vucevic, yeah. I'm basing this mainly off of the fact that I think they are going to re-sign Vucevic, and we, Zach and I were talking about this earlier, that it would be pretty odd for the Magic to take another big man
Yeah.
again in the draft. So, and they do need help at guard. It's probably their biggest weakness right now. So, getting Romeo Langford, I think, would be a good addition to their team,
Yeah.
and because they, like you mentioned, they need a point guard. So,
Yep. So pick 17 here for the Atlanta Hawks. This is where I've got PJ Washington going. It's where Connor's got Brandon Clark going, and Eric's got Rui Hachimura. So all these guys you've heard from other picks, but we just have them going to the Hawks here. And the Hawks need big men. That's why Connor and I both have them taking power forwards here. They've got Trae Young's probably their big star on their team right now. They've got John Collins, who's a big guy, but they could definitely use help at other positions, like Eric having them with Rui Hachimura. But so interesting here, two Gonzaga guys, different Gonzaga guys at the same pick.
Yeah. I mean, the Hawks are it's unfortunate for me that my top two teams don't tend to make the playoffs at all, because the Hornets are my favorite team, but I always try and root for the Hawks too, because they're the next closest team to where I live. And so it's a bit unfortunate that a couple of years ago they were doing really well back when Al Horford was still there and everything, and now they've just gone to trash. So hopefully they can get it fixed, because I need someone to root for in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I at this point I'm pretty much rooting for everybody's going to hate me for this, but they haven't made the playoffs recently either, but rooting for the Lakers. Everybody's going to hate me for that. In my defense, I only liked them because when I was a kid, I thought Kobe Bryant was the coolest guy. I mean, he was my favorite player, so I don't really like him as much now because I'm not a fan of LeBron at all. So my preference for them has definitely gone down. Yeah, and so really, I mean, last year in the playoffs, if I had to pick someone I was rooting for, but I was rooting for the Thunder because I'm a big fan of Russell Westbrook. I know that would make Eric happy, but I like Russell Westbrook, and I just I liked them ever since they came around. I liked Kevin Durant originally, and so I just they were that, and I needed someone to root for in the playoffs because Charlotte's never making it. So,
so pick 18 here with the Indiana Pacers. I've got them taking Matisse Thybulle. This is another
Thybulle.
He's a shooting guard from Washington. Another Pac-12 guy I didn't really get to watch, and I'm just kind of trusting the pick. But I have seen, actually, you know what? I haven't even done this, but I've got a website here that has some of these players' profiles, so to say. So let me just check his out real quick because I really don't know much about him. So I've got him earlier than this website's got him. Oh, they don't even have him in the first round. So unless I missed it. But yeah, I don't know. I'll go back to the draft. There's Grant Williams. You can see that they have taken. But yeah, so I've got him. The Oladipo is still injured. I don't know when he's going to be coming back. He's got that. I forgot what his injury was, but I know it's a really bad one. So I don't know if he's going to be back for the start of the season. So they're going to need a shooting guard. They're probably going to need a couple different things. But Indiana, it's a team that their needs are going to change based off their free agency because they have a lot of cap space to sign free agents. So if they sign a big-time free agent, their needs are going to change based on that. I mean, these rookies aren't going to make that big of an impact for these picks that we're talking about now.
Well, and it's pretty interesting to see how, at least for this pick, you and Eric both have them taking a guard, whereas I actually have them taking Bol, a center. And so I think it's mainly based off of, I don't know, I'm not as confident in this pick because I know I've heard a lot of people talk about that the Pacers were interested in Langford as a point guard, but I think he's going to go
that Indiana connection. I'm telling you, man. The geography.
They were interested in Langford, but I think he's going to go before it gets to them. Yeah. They were also interested in PJ Washington, which again, he's going to go before it gets to them. Mm-hmm. So, but the other guy that they were talking about besides Bol was Keldon Johnson, who is a shooting guard. So it's kind of up in the air for me with that pick. I don't know if Bol's going to go there. I think he could help them, but I don't know.
Yep. Pick 19 here for the Spurs. I've got them taking Goga. That guy from the Republic
The
of Georgia.
Dodds.
Yeah, Bitadze. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'll let Connor say this next guy, and then Eric's got. I'll just let him say his player he's picking, and then Eric's got Nick Claxton, a center slash power forward. I guess I don't know. I guess I saw him as a center and power forward, but he's from the University of Georgia, not the Republic of Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got them taking Mifondu Kabengele. I can't remember if it's Kabengele or Kabengele, but
Uh-huh.
I've got them taking him from Florida State. Another guy I didn't get to see a whole lot of, even though he's in the ACC, but it was another one of those teams that the Tar Heels only played once.
Mm-hmm.
But the Spurs, we all have the Spurs taking big men. So
my reasoning for this pick here is I know nothing about this Goga guy, but the Spurs the Spurs are known for being a team that picks international players. So I feel like since they seem to always be picking international players, that I would mock them an international player. That's really the only reason why I've got this guy going here.
when they need to get back to the days where they had a big man like Tim Duncan.
Yeah,
they want to revitalize having a good big man on their team.
So this next pick here, I've got Keldon Johnson. This is pick 20, guys, for the Boston Celtics. We're 2/3 done with this mock. And Connor's got Nick Claxton, that center power forward from Georgia. And then Eric's got Matisse, that guy from Georgia. Or not from
Tybull.
Tybull. Yeah, Tybull. This is where I think Keldon Johnson will go. I think he's kind of an overrated player, in my opinion. Out of all the, to me, Kentucky's got a lot of these late first round players. I think the reason why these guys are being mocked up higher than they, in my opinion, should be is because they're from Kentucky. They were at Kentucky, so I feel like that's
college recognition.
Yeah, they have that sort of, I'm a one and done. I'm a 5-star. I'm a 4-star. So
Yeah.
they have that going for them, and then they went to Kentucky, a school known for this one and done. And to me, he was okay. He was inconsistent, but to be a top 20 pick, I mean, I don't know. I guess he's going to
questionable.
Yeah, but I just don't expect big things from him. And I don't like Kentucky, but I'm trying not to put personal bias on here. But to me, I mean, PJ Washington, to me, out of all three of them, has the best chance of being a true NBA player. But I don't know. I know Eric has these guys mocked up pretty high, but I just feel like they shouldn't be. So maybe they will be, but this is more like my feelings on it. But
yeah, and I mentioned earlier that I have the Celtics taking a big man, and this is where I have them taking the big man, since I had them taking, I can't remember who I had before, but I had them taking a guard earlier, so now I've got them taking their big man with Nick Claxton, which obviously they're going to need, since Zach mentioned that Al Horford's leaving, so most likely. So
yep. So now I've got another Kentucky guy. You can pick which one you want. It doesn't really matter to me. These guys, I think Hero's a better shooter. Keldon Johnson's more of like a rounded player, but Hero's definitely a shooter, and that's why I have him going to the Thunder. They desperately need 3-point shooters, and so I think he'd be intriguing to them if he's available at the spot. So this is a fit based pick, so to say. So, and then also Connor has got Cameron Johnson, his North Carolina guy, going here. And then Eric's got Romeo Langford, the point guard out of Indiana. I'd be shocked if this guy gets picked here, because
he falls this far.
Yeah, I don't think Indiana's going to pass up on him, being that from Indiana.
Yeah, Indiana's really interested in him. So if it gets to Indiana, I think Indiana's going to take him.
Yeah, calling you out for that pick, Eric. But I'll let you talk about your North. Yeah, I think this is the last North Carolina guy, right, for the first round.
I think he'll probably be the last North Carolina guy, period, because I don't think Luke May or Kenny Williams have been projected to get drafted at all.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Cam Johnson. You mentioned that the Thunder really need 3-point shooting. Cam Johnson was the top. I think he was second best 3-point shooter in the ACC last year. And I would love for Cameron Johnson to go here because I mentioned just not long ago that I do root for the Thunder because I needed someone to root for in the playoffs. So I'd love to see Cam Johnson go to the Thunder. And he's another interesting small forward in the fact that he's 6'9", so he could possibly shift over to the power forward position if he needed to. But I know the Thunder already have. It's going to be interesting to see the dynamic between him and Paul George if the Thunder take Cameron Johnson, because obviously Paul George is a proven all-star. He's a great player. And so I can't remember, is Paul George, is he a power forward or is he a small forward? I can't remember.
I know with Indiana he was a small forward. I think with OKC he
I
plays
think
as a power forward now. But
well, I think he can play. I think he's officially a small forward. But
it's
he
just
can play as a power forward.
A lot of times they want to go with like a smaller lineup. So if they put Russell Westbrook, like a Jeremy Grant, and Dennis Schroeder. I mean, Schroeder would be like the point guard there, but they put those three out there, and then Paul George by default is going to be the power forward.
Right. Yeah. Eric's not here to help us with this.
Yeah, but he knows more about the Thunder's lineups.
But yeah, Cameron Johnson, great 3-point shooter, and it was unfortunate for me when I found out that he was a senior this year because I didn't realize that last year he had been a transfer from Pitt, and he was already a junior. So it was a bit of a disappointment for me when I found out at the start of the year
so
that
he was already a freshman.
Yeah, well, I didn't know if he was a freshman, but I thought he was at least, a sophomore probably. Yeah. So it was a bit of a shock to me when I found out that he was a senior this year. I was like, oh man, that sucks. Like, especially then when I found out that Kobe White was going to be a 1-and-done and that Nasir Little was going to be 2. So there's going to be some serious rebuilding going on.
You do have that Cole Anthony guy coming who's supposed to be really good.
Right.
And he's another guy in 2K that always seems to do really well. And it's not even a real 2K player because it's somebody who made a draft class and made him that, but he always wins like MVPs in the future and stuff. So
yeah, well, I mean that'd be nice because it's gonna be some serious rebuilding going on in Chapel Hill this year. So. Yeah.
And then for pick 22 here, for the Boston Celtics, their final pick in the first round, I've got them taking Nick Claxton, another big guy from Georgia. Connor's got them taking Keldon Johnson, the guy that I was talking about earlier from Kentucky. And then, Eric's got him taking Admiral Schofield, small forward from Tennessee. And I'll kind of talk about Schofield here since obviously he's a Tennessee guy that I watched for 4 years. And it's interesting because in the mock drafts, I've seen him go around this area, and most of them don't have him in the first round, but most of them have him going anywhere in the second round. Some of them have him not even in the second round at all. So to me,
he's all over the place.
He's hard to get all over the map. Him. Yeah, it is. It's definitely hard to get a read. I don't have Schofield in the first round. I hope he does go in the first round, but
we both have him as second round.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of why Eric's got him here, other than the fact that he likes him, from Tennessee.
Favoritism.
Maybe because I posted a link or something that showed him and Bone working out for the Celtics together against each other. He might have seen that and been like, oh, I guess the Celtics are working him out, so they might like him. I don't know, but he's worked out with the Trailblazers. He's worked out with a bunch of different teams, the Hornets. I mean, he's gone to a bunch of teams. I
mean, it's a possibility. I know I said favoritism right there, but it's a possibility that he could go. It's not a high possibility, but it could happen.
Definitely. And I think he could end up being a really good player because, I mean, athletically, he's built like a tank, man. Like he's like,
he is.
I don't think he's like Zion, like with the muscles and stuff. It's crazy. And he's actually a good shooter too. But, well, I'll say this, as a shooter goes, he's hot and cold because there was a stretch in the season where, for 4 or 5 games, where he was nowhere to be found. Like, it was just Grant Williams doing all the work for him. And then he was like nowhere to be found. And then there's one game where they really needed him, and he showed up big for him. He had a huge game, and then after that, he got his confidence back and played well the rest of the season. But he took kind of a slide there, and he did finish first team All SEC. So he, they were saying it earlier in the because when the season first started, he was in the SEC Player of the Year discussion with Grant Williams, and then Grant kind of took over from that when Schofield
he had a more complete season.
Mm-hmm. He had a more complete season, but Schofield came back and was big for him in the tournament games, and so he did finish first team All SEC, which is something that he said for being picked in the draft this high. So that's
well, I mean, and the SEC is probably the second best. Well, actually, I don't know. They're probably the third best conference. There's a discussion between the Big Ten and the ACC right now for who's the best in college basketball, but the SEC is probably the consensus third best right now, so it's pretty big if you can make. It's not like if you're making the all Pac-12 team right now, considering how bad they were last year. So
and the SEC I think got 8 teams, I want to say, in the tournament too. The most that they've had in a long time.
I don't know. I'll take a look at that.
Okay.
I know the ACC got.
I mean, they didn't lead all the conferences, but for their standard, it was the most teams that they've had in a long time make it. So
right, well, because normally when you think of the SEC in the tournament, you just think Kentucky. You don't really think of anybody else.
Maybe Florida, and maybe another wild card. But I mean, they had a lot. Mississippi's, the Auburn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had Auburn, Florida, Kentucky, LSU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, and they were tied with the ACC with 7 for second place, and then the Big Ten had 8.
Okay, gotcha.
I know the ACC was they were supposed to have more before then, but then NC State and Clemson had their unfortunate mishaps. So the ACC they were originally going to have 9, but
yeah. So, pick 23 here for the Grizzlies. I've got them taking Cameron Johnson, the guy that Connor talked about a few picks before. Connor's got Ty Jerome, the shooting guard out of Virginia, probably most famous for tournament games and stuff.
He carried them through that finals game.
So he was the guy that, or was it Kyle Guy? Which one was it that made those?
I think it was Jerome who was the one that carried them against Texas
I think it
Tech.
was too.
I can look it up, but if I remember correctly, I was hearing.
I think so too, because that really boosted his stock after that.
Yeah, I mean, even just through the tournament, though, you were all hearing about Ty Jerome. Yeah. I mean, DeAndre Hunter obviously there too, but you were really just hearing about Ty Jerome.
And then not Evan. Maybe one day.
Shout out to our other cousin.
Yeah,
who was a lot younger.
The youngest male Conger cousin, Evan. But no, Eric's got Kevin Porter Jr., a small forward from USC, and he's kind of a guy I've seen all around the first round too. But it seems like his stock's kind of slipping, so that's probably why Eric's got him farther back. But
yeah, and it actually was. Well, Kyle Guy scored more points in that game against Texas Tech, but Ty Jerome did a lot more. Like he had 8. I mean, Kyle Guy had 3 rebounds and no assists, whereas Ty Jerome had 6 rebounds and 8 assists to go with 16 points. So,
yeah.
And like I said, he was the guy I was hearing about all throughout the tournament as the guy that was the key to Virginia's success.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So, did we miss something?
Nope.
Okay, no, yeah, I'm the first one to pick Grant Williams. Because I know Grant's in back-to-back picks here, but so I'll talk. Yeah, so pick 24 here for the 76ers. I've got them taking Grant Williams. If you look at the 76ers, they're going to definitely be keeping Embiid and Simmons, but losing Butler, Redick, possibly Tobias Harris, they need someone. I think they need a big, really. I mean, they could use shooting too, but Grant Williams, to me, I've seen him go to the 76ers in a lot of mock drafts, but he's another guy that I would not be shocked if he goes in the second round. I think he's 50-50 on first round, second round mocks.
Yeah, late first round, early second.
Yeah, late first round. That one mock draft, CBS had him going to the Pistons, the Pacers. Up at like 18 or something. That's the highest I've seen him in a while. I remember a few weeks ago, I saw him going all the way up to the Heat, that pick 13. That was crazy.
No, I don't. That's
that
not going
was
to
just a
happen.
that was just a one-off.
I mean,
But
I know you and Eric would
yeah,
be happy about that, but
yeah.
that's not going to happen.
I don't think it'll happen either. But I mean, this is another guy. I mean, it's biased because I watch the team a lot and I support him, but I think he could end up being really good. I mean, he had kind of an unstoppable move in the college game. I don't know how this is going to translate to the pros because he's kind of like a tweener in his position because he'd be a small he in height wise he'd be a small power forward.
Yeah, he's only 6'8", I think, right?
Yeah, I he's not a real tall guy, but he's a but he lived in the paint last year. Like he didn't shoot that many threes. He started to shoot threes up towards the end of the season, but he really lived in the paint and he's got like a fake dribble shot that I mean he in the college game anyways he was able to dominate and he won that he's a back-to-back SEC player of the year too, which hasn't been done in like 15 years or something to have a back-to-back player win the SEC player of the year. So that's impressive. I mean, he's going to be the I can see comparisons though where people are like, "Oh, he's a really good college player, but it's not going to translate well to the NBA." But I'm holding out hope for him to be able to translate. He's a really smart guy. I know they mentioned in a lot of the games, and my dad would joke with me about it. Oh, he plays this many instruments, and he knows this many languages or something. Like he's taken this this degree. He's kind of like Josh Dobbs was.
I was about to say that. He reminds me of Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, he's like he's a student like a true student athlete where he's got a lot of academic stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and obviously, I'm pretty familiar with Josh Dobbs now too, because for those of you who are watching on YouTube, you can see my new Skype logo is a Pittsburgh Steelers logo. So, this is the one sport that I go outside of North Carolina for. I've been a Steelers fan since I was 4 years old, so I'm sure a lot of people give me crap about that, but I'm a loyal Steelers fan. So,
yeah, that's not my logo.
Probably like, why are you not a Panthers fan? But nope, I'm a Steelers fan. Get over it. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm really familiar with him now too because he's Roethlisberger's backup. So, and I'm happy with the success that he's been having in the NFL. Yeah. I mean, he came in for a game. There was one game last year, I can't remember, where Roethlisberger had to go out because he got hurt, and he converted a crucial third down for us to keep us going. So,
yep. So for time purposes here, guys, we're gonna kind of skim through these last. Yeah, because I mean we're talking about the same players here, and now that we've talked about Grant and the North Carolina guys, Little and Johnson, and all those guys, we really don't have too much to say for these people, but. For the rest of the picks here at pick 24, Connor's got Kevin Porter. Eric's got KZ Okpala.
KZ.
I like that name. Stanford. And then the Trailblazers pick 25. Really quickly, they need bigs, I think. That's why I've got them taking a power forward.
Yeah, I'm the only one who doesn't. I've got them taking a guard.
Eric's got Grant Williams here. Connor's got Tibble from Washington, that guy we were talking about earlier. Pick 26, the Cavaliers. I've got them taking Kevin Porter. You've heard his name a couple times now. Now I've got him picked here. Connor's got Grant Williams going to Cleveland, which is possible, definitely. I know he's worked out with them before. And then Eric's got Brandon Clark. Remember, I had him, I think, at pick 9.
Low.
Yeah, so this is the biggest range of picks, I want to say, 9 to 26 between me and Eric.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I have heard him. It's, like you said earlier, there is a wide range for him. So it's not beyond a possibility that him getting taken all the way down there and sliding.
Yeah. Pick 27, this is kind of just shooting.
This is when our players start getting really different.
Yeah. So I've got Bruno Fernando, center from Maryland. I read good things about him. Connor's got Eric Pascal. I remember him being on the Villanova championship team, so he's a name that you're familiar with.
Don't remind me of that.
All right, and then Eric's got Dylan Windler, Belmont player, shooting guard from Belmont.
He was actually pretty good in the game. I remember watching him in the game against Arizona State. I remember they didn't do as well against Maryland as they hoped, but he played a pretty good game against Arizona State. So
Yeah. Okay, pick 28 for the Warriors. I've got KZ Opala. Another geography pick here. I saw he went to Stanford, so I put him at Golden State. Then Connor's got Dylan Windler, the guy he just talked about from Belmont. Now Eric finally has Bol Bol being taken here. Eric, what are you doing with Bol Bol here so late? I know Eric's got Bol Bol in his 2K franchise, so I thought he was going to give him some love there because Bol Bol is really good for him, and obviously he's so tall, but he can actually, if 2K is anything like real life, he's actually got a mid-range shot.
yeah,
he
well,
makes he makes mid-range shots in 2K, but
yeah, it was one interesting thing that I wanted to mention really quick is that I saw a list before the draft of players that were to most likely get significant minutes after being drafted, and Bol Bol was actually most of you would think Zion would be number one, but Bol Bol was actually number one at 98%. Zion was number two at 97 or something, but
yeah,
it was interesting to see Bol Bol at number one on that list.
Yep. Pick 29, the Spurs here. I have them taking Daniel Gafford, a center out of Arkansas, and kind of an unpopular pick, I think. None of you guys don't have him in your first round. He's a second round on a lot of things, but the Spurs usually they pick players that you don't think are going to be picked there, but then they end up being really good. Look at like Kawhi Leonard and other players that they pick that. And I watched Gafford. He played for Arkansas, and the games that I saw him playing, he was really dominant, and I think he's going to end up being pretty well. I could see him being better than some of those Kentucky guys, but just because he went to Arkansas, I feel like he's being shafted a little bit in this. But Connor's got Dort. I'll just say his last name, Dort. Lugens Dort from Arizona State. He's a power forward. And then Eric's got Cameron Johnson, small forward from North Carolina.
As much as that doesn't make me happy, I have seen Cam Johnson kind of range from late first round to early second, so I can't be mad at Eric for that one.
Yep. And then the last pick in the first round for the Milwaukee Bucks, I've got on taking Ty Jerome. We talked about earlier, big, contributor in the championship game and their run to the finals. And then Connor's got Bruno Fernando. I like how his name rhymes. Center from Maryland. Then Eric's got the
Florida State. Kabengele.
Yep. So that rounds out our 2019 NBA mock draft special. But before we end this show, we do have some current events to talk about. Connor and I will both be talking about a few different things, but he'll start with the Women's World Cup.
Yeah, so this has been a pretty NBA-heavy episode, so wanted to talk a little bit more. And obviously, I wasn't here last time to give my current event update, but I'm here now. And first thing, talk about the Women's World Cup. Quick update on the United States. Actually, this is probably mainly going to be about the United States. Is they won 3-0 over Chile. Interesting stat is that they're actually one goal short of tying the record for the most goals scored in the group stage in the Women's World Cup. Mainly after that 13-0 butt whooping of Thailand. But one interesting thing about the match against Sweden here, I heard a lot of speculation on would the U.S. be, not necessarily should they throw the game, but would they be unhappy if they lost to Sweden? Because what would happen if the U.S. were to beat Sweden, which most people are expecting they should, despite the fact that the U.S. actually doesn't have the greatest record in the world against Sweden in the Women's World Cup. Sweden was actually the one who knocked the U.S. women out of the gold medal. I shouldn't say the gold medal match, but knocked them out of the Olympics, basically, in Rio. So, yeah, they were talking, but if they were to beat Sweden, they would go on to a second round matchup or a round of 16 matchup against Spain. For sure, that is locked. If they win, it's against Spain. But the reason why everyone was saying that they don't know if they really want to win and go up against that match against Spain, because what would happen would be their next game would be against France, who is the host of the World Cup. And aside from being a good team, France is also the host, so that gives them a boost. So there's a lot of people that are unsure if they want the U.S. to go down that route, even though I'm sure they're more than capable of doing that, of beating France if it comes to that.
Yeah.
But the flip side of the coin would be they would probably have an easier match against Spain if they were to win. But the flip side would be if they were to lose against Sweden and get second in the group, they would be going into a first round matchup against either Canada or the Netherlands, which are both really good teams. And so it'd be a harder road to start with. Obviously, it would probably get a bit easier since they wouldn't have to play France. But Zach and I were talking about this before. It'd probably just be in their best interest to win.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't
keep winning, keep the momentum.
Right.
That's what I think.
I mean, I didn't see, even though I saw those rumors about, should they take the loss or should they be concerned about it? They're going to want to win. I mean, you're just going to lose momentum if you lose. And you really shouldn't, you don't want to be looking towards the future, right? Like that. You just want to look at the here and now and you want to win. So, but yeah, so that wraps up Women's World Cup. I think the game is tomorrow, U.S. and Sweden. But the next story...
I'm off tomorrow at work, so maybe I'll watch it.
But this is the story that Zach talked about last time on the podcast when he was doing his current events with Blackshear from Virginia Tech, so I'll let him talk about this one.
So I've been following this even before we started talking about it on the podcast. I would see on Instagram some college basketball accounts I follow would post updates on this guy named Kerry Blackshear, and I never heard of him before I saw this, but he's the best grad transfer that there is on the market right now, and his stats, I think they're in here. He's like 15 points a game, 7.5 rebounds for Virginia Tech last year.
It's good for college.
Yeah, it's good for college, and Virginia Tech was successful last year. They almost beat Duke in the tournament. They did beat him once in the regular season, and he had something to do with that.
I'll be minus Zion, but...
Yeah. So it says here he's arguably the nation's top transfer currently on Tennessee's campus, but he's visited with Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Florida, and Texas A&M. So a lot of SEC teams. I think it's guaranteed he's going to the SEC. And then recently someone reported that he's now narrowing his choices down from the big 5 or 6, 7 schools to now 3 schools in Tennessee, Kentucky, and Texas A&M. And the only reason really Texas A&M is in consideration is because his former head coach is now the head coach at Texas A&M. So I think his name's Buzz Williams, and so that's the reason why he's being considered for Texas A&M. But to me, I think it's really between Kentucky and Tennessee. And this is interesting. I posted an article about this earlier today, last night actually. This guy, Jeff Goodman, Stadium College Basketball Insider, he's reported that this is he's saying that this is a huge, possibly, season-changing sort of decision on how the season's going to go for the SEC teams, and that Tennessee or Florida right now would be considered like an unranked or like a ranked in the 20s.
Yeah, they're losing all their players.
Yeah, they're losing Grant. I mean, 4 of their starters.
Yeah, Florida's losing their players too.
Yeah, so. We didn't even talk about Bone. Well, Florida's actually a younger team than they're not losing as many players, but they're losing their star from last year for sure. But they're supposed to be getting younger and better, but they're still unproven. And so they're around the unranked.
You're right. We didn't talk about Bone at all.
Yeah, we didn't talk about Bone at all. And then Alexander's a guy who's probably gonna sign like an undrafted contract, but I haven't seen it in any mock drafts. But he's been working out with teams, so I think he will sign as an undrafted free agent, probably play in the G League and stuff. But this is how big of a decision this Kerry Blackshear is going to be. He says that if he goes to Tennessee or Florida, he moves them from that ranking spot all the way to a Final Four contender, which is crazy to me that one player can make this big of an impact. And if he chooses Kentucky, he says he's got Kentucky around like the 5th spot right now in his preseason rankings. That if he chooses Kentucky, that would make Kentucky the favorites for him to win the title. So those are huge, these are huge stakes on the line here. And Kentucky is not really used to, having grad transfers on their team like we've talked about before. They're mostly freshmen. They mostly start freshmen. But so this is kind of new for them, having to like try and recruit a guy who's already been playing college ball. But and I don't. I've been searching Kerry Blackshear's name, and I haven't seen anything come out today. Anything different than what I saw from that Jeff Goodman report. So it's going to be interesting. I think you could expect a decision by tomorrow or Friday. I'd say so. That's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on. Probably the biggest news right now for college basketball, other than like the freshman recruiting for the next years, because most freshmen have already decided on where they're going to be playing. So you're looking at 21 players and stuff. But
right, yeah. I mean, I agree with you on that, and I I put a funny comment on that post that I didn't really, despite the fact that he played in the ACC, I wasn't very knowledgeable about who he was. And I'm looking back on the UNC VT game, and he actually had a double-double in that game. I didn't even realize that when I was looking earlier at Nikhil Alexander-Walker. But yeah, I posted that if he's supposed to be this big of a game changer and monumental player, then hey, I'm kind of happy that he's in the ACC. It'll make it easier for the Tar Heels to beat VT next year. And I agree that it's between Tennessee and Kentucky, because I find it, even though his coach is at Texas A&M, I find it hard to believe that he would leave a contender like Virginia Tech just to go to a team that didn't even make the tournament last year. Yeah. So I agree that it's between Tennessee and Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. And then, also
we'll be bringing you updates on that as we go. But more current events: the U.S. Open for golf finished up a couple days ago. I was hearing about this nonstop when I was in Ohio over my vacation, unfortunately, and it was like, I kind of don't care about this as much. I'd rather hear other stuff, but I was hearing about this forever, and Gary Woodland ended up winning at -13. Brooks Koepka started to make a run towards the end of the last round, but he kind of fell off, and Woodland got better, so Woodland ended up winning. Koepka, if anybody remembers, he was the guy who won the PGA Championship, which was the previous major. And the biggest story, probably again, from this is Tiger Woods. And everybody was talking about, ever since that Masters win, people have been talking about that Tiger Woods was back and that he was going to be going back to winning majors and stuff. But he really hasn't performed at all ever since that Masters win. I mean, I can't remember what he finished at in the PGA Championship. It wasn't great. And then obviously only finishing -2 at the U.S. Open, tied for 21st. So I don't know what's going on. I think it's just a lot of hype. I think people are just overreacting to how well he performed at the Masters. I don't think he's going to be a contender in any of the other majors. I'm sure all the ESPN and sports outlets will say, "Oh, Tiger's a contender," but I
mean, just looking at this list here, like he's like the only recognizable name. Day I've heard of, or
right.
Pyrrhic,
So I think it's all hype, no merit to it.
Gotcha.
Then also, we spent this whole podcast talking about the NBA draft. One thing we didn't mention is the NHL draft that's coming up around the same time. And so, not too much to talk about here because we don't know anything about it really. The only thing I know about it is that the Carolina Hurricanes have the 28th pick, and they don't even know who they're going to be taking, because obviously once you get that late in the draft, it's such a crapshoot as to who is still going to be around at that point. Last year, the Hurricanes had the 2nd pick in the draft, and pretty much everybody knew they were going to take Andrei Svechnikov. So, yeah, that's the NHL draft. I'm not going to really spend too much time on that. Just mention it for any hockey fans out there.
Let me refresh this to see the...
Yeah. So...
Kuch got the Hart.
Exactly. Okay. So that means they announced all the award winners. And so
go down to the...
was time when we started this podcast, the NHL awards are tonight, and they they were going on as we started the podcast, and it looks like they finished it up because the Hart Trophy is the last award they were the night. It's at the end of the night. It's the MVP trophy. Pretty predictable. Nikita Kucherov coming home with the MVP award, and the Lightning were so dominant all year. I'm kind of not surprised that Vasilevsky won the Vezina Trophy for the best goaltender. I thought it might have a chance to go to someone else, but you can't argue with how dominant the Lightning were this year. Alexander Ovechkin once again winning the Rocket Richard Trophy for most goals in a season. I don't know how many times he's won that trophy, but he's probably getting close to some kind of record for it, at least in the modern era, aside from Wayne Gretzky probably. Barry Trotz winning the Jack Adams Award. He left the Capitals at the end of last year to go to the Islanders. And I know, unfortunately for me, I really wanted Rod Brind'Amour to be considered for the Jack Adams Trophy, given how far the Hurricanes went in the playoffs when nobody even expected them to make the playoffs at the start of the year. But unfortunately, they only look at regular season and not playoffs. Mm-hmm. So I think if they included playoffs, Brind'Amour would probably be a really high contender for it. But since they only look at the regular season, Barry Trotz winning it. And the rest of it is not too interesting. Nikita Kucherov won a bunch of stuff. He won the Art Ross. He won the Art Ross Trophy for most points, and won the Ted Lindsay Award, which is like the most outstanding player voted by the players. So that's a short little look at the NHL awards, and I think that's probably going to do it for us.
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a longer podcast here, but I mean, we did do a full mock draft, so there's a lot to talk about on that side, and plus the trades and everything. But so thank you to everybody who listened, for even if you just listened to a part of this for your team's mock draft. That's great. We appreciate it. Make sure to follow us on Facebook at Clutch Crew Sports, Twitter at Clutch Crew Sports. I'm going to finally start doing some more Instagram stuff to the Instagram followers, because I haven't been very active on that. But Eric's very active on the Twitter side. He even said 5 hours ago, tonight, Zach and Connor will be recording a podcast with a full first-round mock, even though he's not even a participant in this episode. But there's a lot of interactive stuff on Twitter. I know if you Eric replies to everything on there, so if you have questions,
if you want to send him a question,
definitely send it on there. Go ahead.
I do want to let everybody know out there that I know originally the YouTube channel was called Mr. Seadog 54. I have now officially changed that to Clutch Crew Sports, because I've had that YouTube channel for 6 years now, and that's just what it was called originally. But I did change it to Clutch Crew Sports. So if you're looking for us on YouTube, I don't know if it'll still come up if you check Mr. Seadog 54, because that's still my Google account. But you can try and look. But it should Clutch Crew Sports. Oh, it does still come up if you search that too.
Yeah.
But it is officially called Clutch Crew Sports now, and so hopefully you get some more views on there. You probably want to watch this episode. Subscribe. Like, comment, subscribe. But you probably want to watch this episode on YouTube if you can, so that way you can see a visual of all of our picks on the mock draft.
YouTube. This is definitely a YouTube-centered episode for sure.
Yeah, and so, and like Zach said, we appreciate all of you guys out there listening to the podcast. We know there's not many of you right now, but we really appreciate all the support, and hopefully we can get some more, and follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook.
Yeah, so next episode, we're going to do a little bit of a recap of the draft, see how well we all did, see which one of us got the most correct, and then, see how that goes. And Eric will definitely give his thoughts on the trades that took place, and I'm sure by then there will be more trades and news going on in all sports. So
and another rant from Eric.
Definitely stay tuned for that. Eric's going to come back with another rant. So thank you guys again, and take care, and good night.
See ya.